Hello everyone, it's Jen from Old Tinker Studio, and this is going to be the first tutorial of the Low Poly Modeling for Beginners series. In this tutorial, we will be modeling a low poly compass. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we are in Cycles Render. Go into Orthographic View, which is 5 on the numpad, and Front View, which is 1 on the numpad. Make sure your cube is selected and delete it. Just hit X, delete. Now we're going to add a cylinder. So hit Shift A, and under Mesh, choose Cylinder. Now we're going to go ahead and resize the cylinder along the S axis. So hit S, X, and the number 4, and enter. We're going to do the same thing along the Y axis. S, Y, 4, and enter. Then go into top view, which is 7 on the numpad, and tab into edit mode. Go into face mode by hitting Control Tab. Select the top face of the cylinder, and we want to inset the face. So hit I, and then 0.1, and enter. Now we'll go into front view, which is 1 on the numpad, and wireframe mode, which is Z. And we want to extrude the face down along the Z axis. So hit E, -1, enter. Then go back into solid mode, which is the Z key. Now we're going to add the decoration inside the compass. So let's add a cube, Shift A, cube, go into top view, 7 on the numpad. We're going to resize the cube along the Z axis. So hit S, Z, 0.1, enter. Then we're going to resize it along the X axis, S, X, 0.3. And finally we're going to resize it along the Y axis, S, Y, 3. Now go into edge mode, Control Tab, and we want to add a horizontal edge loop right down the center of the cube. So hit Control R, and then hit your left mouse button twice. Let's zoom in a little bit, and we need to select the right and left top edges of this cube. To pan, just hold your Shift key and then your middle mouse button. Select the right one, Shift select the left one. And we want to merge these at the center, so hit Alt M at center. And we want to do the same thing at the bottom of this cube. So select one edge, Shift select the other, Alt M, merge at center. Okay. Now go ahead and select the entire cube. Just hover over one of the edges and hit your L key. And we want to duplicate this. So hit Shift D, enter. Then we want to rotate the duplicated cube around the Z axis 90 degrees. So R, Z, 90, enter. Now select both cubes. Again, just hover over an edge and hit L. And duplicate both of these cubes. Shift D, enter. And we want to rotate these cubes around the Z axis 45 degrees. So R, Z, 45, enter. And then we're going to just resize these duplicated cubes. So hit S.8, enter. Now go into front view, which is 1 on the numpad. And we're going to go ahead and make the needle holder, the center part. So hit Shift A and add a cylinder. Go into wireframe mode, which is Z. We want to resize the cylinder along the x-axis. So SX.1, enter. And resize along the y-axis, SY.1, enter. And we need to resize the cylinder along the z-axis, SZ.3, enter. Now we're going to go ahead and make the direction mark. So go back into solid mode, which is Z, and add a cube, Shift A, cube. We're going to resize the cube along the z-axis, SZ.1, enter. Go into top view, which is 7 on the numpad. Resize the cube along the x-axis, so SX.05, and resize the cube along the y-axis, SY.2, enter. Then use your manipulator and move the cube to the top of the compass. Duplicate this cube, Shift D, enter. And move the duplicated cube to the right of the original cube. So it's about 2/10 of a blender unit apart. So I'm going to scroll in, pan down, and just use the manipulator, move this over. Then go ahead and duplicate this cube, Shift D, enter. We want to rotate this duplicated cube around the z-axis 45 degrees. So hit RZ45, enter. And then move this duplicated cube between the original two to make it look like an N for north. And then go ahead and hover over each of these original 2 cubes and hit your L key to select them. And then once you have all 3 selected, just center them. Okay, now we're going to make the needle. So make sure you're in top mode, which is 7 on the numpad. And go ahead and add a cube, Shift A, cube. Resize it along the z-axis, SZ.05. Resize it along the x-axis, SX.3. And resize it along the y-axis, SY.3.5. Now we need to move the cube along the z-axis until it's about 90% of the way up above the middle cylinder. Okay, now make sure you're in edge mode, Control Tab, Edge. And we want to add a horizontal loop cut in the center of the cube. So Control R, and then your left mouse button twice. And we want to add a vertical edge loop, so Control R, and move towards the edge so it's actually vertical. And then hit your left mouse button twice. And like with these, we're going to go ahead and merge these edges. So scroll in and pan. And we need to grab the edges. And just to see better, I'm going to go ahead and go into wireframe. So let's grab this edge and shift click this edge. Then Alt M, merge it center, and do the same thing at the bottom. Alt M, and merge it center. Now hover over one of the edges of this cube, this needle, hit L to select the whole thing, and we're going to rotate it around the z-axis 10 degrees. So R, Z, 10, enter. Now we're going to put a glass top over this. So select the entire inner ring of the housing, hold down your Alt key and right click, then fill in the selection with your F key. And we need to separate this face from the rest of the compass. So hit P to separate it and then choose selection. Make sure you have everything deselected. You may have to hit the A key a couple of times. So go ahead and select the new face in the outline. It'll be labeled cylinder.001. And then tab back into edit mode. Go into your materials tab. Click on the new button. And then under surface, click on this small dot right to the side of the diffuse BSDF and select glass. And the IOR, which will make it either more opaque or less opaque, I want to change that to 1.2. Okay. Now we're going to make changes to the lamp. Tab back into object mode, select the lamp, and change it to a sun lamp. Change the size to 0.5. Then go into top mode, top view. And what we want to do is make sure that the lamp is centered above and over the compass. Let's go into front view. And that looks fine. So now what we're going to do is give this a little bit of color. Go ahead and hide the glass in the outliner, the cylinder 001. Just click on the eyeball to hide it temporarily. Go ahead and click on cylinder, which is the compass. And then tab back into edit mode. Make sure you're in face mode. Control tab, face. This will just make it easier to select what we want. Make sure that your materials tab is open. Click on new. And this will just give us the default material and hit assign. If you go under settings, click on viewport color and grab the little eyedropper. You can click on color and then that's what will show up in the viewport. But right now this is just the default color. Hit the plus button, hit new, and change your color to a dark gray. I'm using a hex code of 525252. And again, you can click on the viewport color. Now hit the plus button again, new, and we're going to make this a lighter gray. I'm using hex code 757575. Hit the plus button again, and new, and change the color to a light green. And this is hex code 70C24B. And we need to add two more colors, so hit plus, new, and change the color to a bright red. I'm using hex code E71800. And one more time, hit the plus button, new, and we just want to make this white. And that's a hex code of 6 Fs. Okay, now that we have all our material, we're going to go ahead and apply it. So select all the top faces around the ring. Just hold Alt and click on the line between any two faces. Hold your Shift key and select the very bottom. Hit the dark gray material and assign. Hit A to deselect everything. Go ahead and select the rest of the housing and the cylinder in the middle that holds the needle. So again, Alt, right click, Shift, centering. Once you hover over the center cylinder, just hit L to make sure everything's selected, and then Shift Alt for the outer ring, and go ahead and choose the lighter gray material and click Assign. A to deselect everything. I'm going to adjust that, make that just a little bit lighter. So that would be a hex code of A0A0A0. Go. Okay, now go ahead and select the decorations. You can just hover over them and hit L. And then once you have all of them, go ahead and select your green material and hit Assign. Then A to deselect everything. Then we want to select the top of the needle, the one that's pointed towards the end. So right click, Shift right click, and you'll have to go into wireframe mode to get the bottom too. Okay, back into solid mode. Select your red material, click Assign, A to deselect everything. Now select your end, just hover over these three sections and hit L. And the bottom part of the needle, again just Shift right click, Okay, once you have all that selected, go back to your Materials tab, select the white color, and hit Assign. And then A to deselect everything. Okay, and there you have your very simple low poly compass. I hope you found this useful, and if you have any suggestions or questions, just leave them down below in the comments. Thank you. Have a good day.